Glucose in the body. Glucose is used by cells to generate ATP. ATP is used to drive many cellular activities such as the sodium-potassium pump. Glucose enters the cell and is turned into pyruvate. This is called glycolysis. The pyruvate can then be taken into the mitochondria and transformed into approximately 34 units of ATP. Other than glucose, are there any other molecules that can be turned into ATP? Yes, ketones. Ketones can enter the mitochondria and be turned into approximately 20 units of ATP. Where do ketones come from? From fat breakdown. Let's summarise the molecules involved in energy regulation. Obviously, glucose is the main one. If glucose is very high in the body might want to store it. To store glucose, the body can stick all the molecules together into a storage collection. Can anyone name this molecule? Glycogen. Glycogen looks like this. Many molecules of glucose stuck together and bundled away. Where can the body store glycogen? The muscles and the liver. Can glucose be stored away in any other form? Yes, it can be stored as fat. Where does the body store fat? There is visceral fat around the internal organs, and there are other deposits of fat in the peripheries. Now we have talked about what happens if glucose is high. Let's have a look what happens if glucose is low. The body will try to make glucose and ketones. The body can turn glycogen into glucose. The body can also turn proteins into glucose. And finally, the body can turn fats into ketones. Let's name the pathways that we have drawn. The names don't follow any strict rules, so they are often confusing for students. After watching this tutorial, have a go at writing them all down on your own. The best way to learn is from making mistakes, and now is the time to make mistakes rather than in the exam. What is the name of this pathway which turns glucose into pyruvate in the cytoplasm of the cells? Glycolysis. What is the name of this pathway that turns glucose into glycogen? Glycogenesis. You can see in this word there are two words fused together, glycogen and genesis. Genesis meaning creation, so we are creating glycogen. What is the name of this pathway that turns glucose into fat? Lipogenesis. You can see that this word is two words added together, lipo, which means fat, and genesis, which means creation. So these are all the pathways that will bring blood glucose levels down. Let's go the other way. What is the name of the pathway that turns glycogen to glucose? Glycogenolysis. Lysis means to break, therefore this describes how we are breaking glycogen. What is the name of the pathway that turns proteins into glucose? Gluconeogenesis. Gluco for glucose, neo is Latin for new, and genesis is creation. So it describes how we are making glucose out of something that was not glucose before. What is the name of the pathway that turns fat into ketones? Lipolysis. Lysis for breakdown and lipo for fat. And ketogenesis, the creation of ketones. The lipolysis explains how the fat is broken down into little fatty acids, and the ketogenesis describes how beta oxidation can turn these fatty acids into ketone bodies. Now, where do all these pathways happen? The liver has the capacity to do all of them. The liver is therefore a key player in blood sugar regulation. If it creates glucose, it sends it out to the body to feed the cells. If the body doesn't need glucose, it packages it all up and sends fatty acids into the bloodstream so the fat cells can store them. What do you think your blood sugar is right now? If you are healthy, it should be between 4 and 7.8 millimoles per litre. Can your muscles do any of these functions? Muscles, like all cells, carry out glycolysis, and they have stores of glycogen, so they are also predominantly carrying out glycogenolysis and glycogenesis. What functions do the fat cells predominantly carry out? They predominantly carry out lipolysis. However, they send the free fatty acids to the liver so that the liver can do the remaining step of ketogenesis. And that is the summary of glucose and ketones in the body.